Hey, my name's David with the Freeze Dry Business Channel. This is part 2 of a video series with CryoDry, who visited Nampa, Idaho at DIY Freeze Dry. So in this second video of the series with CryoDry, we're gonna dive into vacuum pumps. We're gonna talk about how they fail, why they fail, and what you need to do to keep yours running properly. Because if you already own a freeze dryer or you're looking at buying one, this is a critical piece for you to understand so that you make a wise investment with the unit that you buy. Before we dive into these questions with Daniel about vacuum pumps, if you're not subscribed right now to the Freeze Dry business and you're interested in freeze drying, do it right now. Also turn on notifications so that you get notified when future videos come out about this series in CryoDry, but also future ones as well. And if you're interested in starting a freeze drying business and you just don't have the right tools, you don't know what questions you should be asking, I've got a great event for you. It's the Freeze Dried Summit. It happens every year in September. If you want to know more, go to the video description right now or go to freezedriedsummit.com and check out the full event. I'd love to see you there. Now let's get to part 2 about vacuum pumps with Daniel Kind of CryoDry. All right, Daniel, I want to talk about the thing that scares people the most when they actually own a freeze dryer, and that's getting the dreaded vacuum error message on their display. No matter what brand you have, sometimes it just comes up more often than others. The CryoDry, though, your company decided to do something a little bit differently and focus on this area. So I want to ask you exactly what's happening when a pump fails and what you guys do to have that not happen.
Great question. So I think, and you're right, it is scary because vacuum pumps are a little box and they sort of sit there until something goes wrong. And certainly if you're using an oil pump with some traditional machines that might be in the market, there's a lot of maintenance, changing oil, there's water in the oil, what's going on with all that? So the CD8 is designed around vacuum pressure control with a vacuum control valve, but it also is actually using our pump for what they're designed for, and we're not relying upon them at, say, the end of the process to not have vapor or gas come back up through into the chamber. So CryoDry pumps, there's 2 pump options that we recommend for use. We would always steer towards a scroll pump, a dry pump. And so we've chosen the High Scroll 6 as the pump of choice for CD8. There is also oil and rotary vapor pumps available. However, I think the main difference here is that our machine is designed to limit the sort of issues that you might find with a rotary vane pump in other machines.
That's great for your pump, and that's great if somebody actually ends up buying it. But a lot of people don't have your freeze dryer and they don't have that pump. Why are those pumps failing that they are currently buying with the machine?
Yeah, sure. Excellent question. So as a manufacturer, the product quality certainly in some freeze dryers that we see on the market is probably not good enough for its intended purpose in freeze drying. Be that 24-hour running or longer. The duty cycle on some of these pumps is meant to be for shorter cycles, 4 hours, 8 hours. So we have a fundamental engineering problem with the pump that's being used, but then we move to servicing. If the freeze dryer you're using is allowing water vapor to build up in the pump, the lubrication that's occurring in that pump is far reduced. And so it's not a matter of just filtering out certain oils or waters or things like that. What we're actually having to do is replace that oil way too frequently. And if people aren't doing that, that's going to lead to pump failure very quickly.
So water shouldn't be in oil?
No, water should not be in oil. The pump, in its proper operating parameters, should be able to deal with any excess vapor from the process, that is the freeze drying, and it should be able to evaporate that out of the oil. There shouldn't be water in the pump.
Why is the oil really dark and murky after, let's say, 5 or 6 runs, or maybe even longer if people forget?
So there's a couple of reasons why you might see a change in the oil color. Generally, it's going to be heat oxidization. It's going to be particulate that's come through from the chamber. I would say that what that is a mix of all of the things that happen in freeze drying. But the key here is that once we start to see a change in that oil color, there's particulate or contaminant that is going to impact that pump's performance. So a scroll pump is fundamentally more difficult to manufacture because it has tighter tolerances. So in a rotary vane or oil pump, what we have is the oil that's also acting as a seal for those vanes. So that's how we get our vacuum performance.
So with going with a scroll pump though, like you guys have chosen, do you feel like that's going to push potential customers out of purchasing your machine because that's more expensive?
It could, absolutely, yes. And I think the answer there is that we'll always offer a rotary vane pump for our customers. but we'd recommend the scroll pump for our customers because of the advantages that the scroll pump has to the process.
How do they know whether they should buy that and invest in that? Like, is there a certain frequency of how often they're freeze drying that would be like, yes, this triggers you to definitely consider that?
If you can afford a scroll pump with a freeze dryer, choose the scroll pump. It's going to give you a better quality of life throughout the machine's usage and throughout your experience of the machine. I would suggest, certainly with a daily operation, that the scroll pump is without a doubt the option. If you've purchased a machine for once in a blue moon and you're quite happy to change the oil in your oil pump, absolutely choose that. And if that's the only reason why you can't afford the machine, choose the oil pump. But the scroll pump will give you better performance day in and day out.
Next question for you is, if you have a bad pump and it's not working, does that mean that the freeze dryer is broken and you have to replace everything? Or can you actually take the existing freeze dryer that you have, that most people have today, and just get a better scroll pump?
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer to that is that if you are experiencing issues with your rotary vane pump on a more traditional system that's in the market that maybe doesn't have vacuum control valves, what you're going to see is elongated run times. You're actually going to be running the machine for a lot longer than you need to, because the performance of that pump has degraded. So it may not have failed straight away, and it may not have ground to a halt or blown a fuse or tripped a breaker, but the performance of the pump over time is going to cause you to have longer run times, which is not going to give you the best quality product.
Now, forget even pumps for a second. How long do you think freeze dryers should even last? What's the lifetime?
So our design intent is 10 plus years. So when we talk about design intent, what we do there is we choose products within the design that allows us to say, we expect that this component, for a large percentage of the units produced, is going to last in excess of 10 years.
So CryoDry, though, has built a browser-based monitoring system for their freeze dryers, and we're talking about pumps. I want to first just ask, why a browser type of view versus apps?
The beautiful thing about using browser-based remote access to a machine is that it's functioning on any device, anywhere. We don't have to worry about downloading apps. We don't have to worry about what device it's on. We're giving the same user experience on every device. So once you're familiar with CryoDry's UI or user experience even, then you're able to simply use that on any of your other devices.
Like, what types of things do you have in your operating system that allows people to monitor vacuum pressure, and why is even monitoring vacuum pressure important?
So in the background, with all of those auto processes that people are doing, it's very much dependent on what that pressure is doing. That is the key to freeze drying, is the vacuum. And so ultimately, what we've built into our system is the ability to alert users for, let's say, for example, vacuum performance that's probably not quite right, or the ability to alert a user or a customer whether or not that vacuum pump may not be able to do what we need it to do throughout the process. We test it up front. When you press go, we test that that's going to be able to work throughout that process.
Well, that was part 2 with Daniel from CryoDry. Now we're in Nampa, Idaho right now at DIY Freeze Dry, and he has his CD8 Pro here. So this is part of a whole series, a 3-part series. So if you want to watch part 1, I've got it in the video description. But coming up next, we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about freeze drying as a business, and Daniel's got some perspective on what he's seen internationally work and how people actually make money across the world. So check those videos out, and we'll see you there.